He was the man who trusted logic above all else, a detective whose mind could solve what others called impossible. But in this case, logic failed him. In Season 19, Episode 4 of Murdoch Mysteries, the sharpest mind in Toronto faces something no clue, no experiment, and no deduction could explain: his own unraveling. As the streets grow darker and the evidence turns inward, one question begins to haunt everyone who knows him. What happens when the brilliant Detective Murdoch can no longer trust his own mind? The episode opens on a fog-covered Toronto street. The sound of carriage wheels echoes through the distance, fading into the soft rhythm of footsteps. A police whistle breaks the silence. A body lies near a lamppost. A man, well-dressed, with no signs of struggle, no visible wound, and no witnesses in sight. A detective, William Murdoch, arrives, coat collar turned up against the chill. He moves with calm precision, examining every detail: the angle of the hat, the smudge on the man's glove, the faint scent of chloroform in the air. Constable Crabtree follows closely, jotting notes and asking questions. But Murdoch is already miles ahead, lost in thought, building theories in his mind faster than anyone can speak them aloud. "Not a robbery," Murdoch murmurs, his voice low but certain. "Something planned." Calculated back at Station House number 4, the investigation begins. The victim, a banker named Harold Fenwick, was last seen leaving his office at 9:30. No known enemies, no financial trouble. His life seemed ordinary, too ordinary. That's what troubles Murdoch most. In his experience, no life is truly without shadows. As Murdoch studies the evidence, he starts noticing small inconsistencies. A timepiece that stopped 3 minutes before death. A witness statement that changes ever so slightly each time it's told. Something feels wrong, not about the crime, but about him. He can't shake the feeling that he's seen this pattern before, though he knows he hasn't. The narrator's tone deepens. For a man built on logic, confusion is the first crack in the glass. Murdoch spends hours in his office, replaying details in his mind. The light of his desk lamp flickers, and for a split second, he sees movement. A shadow across the wall that shouldn't be there. He turns sharply. Nothing. The room is still. He brushes it off, blaming fatigue, but a quiet unease lingers. Later, Dr. Julia Ogden, his wife and confidant, finds him still at work past midnight. Her voice is gentle but firm. "William, you need rest. You've been staring at those notes for hours." He doesn't look up. "Something's wrong with this case, Julia. Every lead leads back to nothing." She steps closer. "Then perhaps it's time to step away for a moment." But Murdoch can't. His mind refuses to let go. The gears are turning, faster, sharper, and somewhere in the whirring of thought and silence, something begins to slip. The next morning, Murdoch returns to the crime scene alone. The fog is thicker now, swallowing the streets. He kneels where the body was found, but something catches his eye. A scrap of paper fluttering under a carriage wheel. He pulls it free. The handwriting on it is familiar. Too familiar. It's his own. He stares at it in disbelief. A note, written in his careful script. He deserved it. The narrator's voice drops low, almost a whisper. For the first time, the great Detective Murdoch finds evidence that points to himself. He stands frozen, paper trembling in his hand. His breath catches, his eyes scanning the vault as if the air itself is accusing him. A chill creeps down his spine, not from the cold, but from a thought he can't ignore. "What if I did this?" he murmurs to no one. The camera pans slowly around him. The quiet street, the flickering lamplight, the shadow of a man who no longer knows what's real. Back at the station, he hides the note. Not out of guilt, but out of fear. He needs to know the truth before anyone else does. Yet as he stares at the evidence board, the photographs seem to shift. Faces blur, the lines between clues twist into confusion. Constable Crabtree's voice cuts in. "Sir, are you all right?" Murdoch forces a smile. "Of course, George. Just thinking," but his hands are shaking. His thoughts, once clear as crystal, now feel clouded, fractured. The narration grows colder, deliberate. In the world of science and reason, doubt is the most dangerous disease of all. And Murdoch, in the man who trusted only truth, is starting to see lies where none exist. As the scene closes, Murdoch sits alone at his desk. The clock ticks louder and louder, echoing through the empty room. He stares at the note again, whispering under his breath, "If I didn't write this, who did?" The lights flicker once more, and this time the shadow on the wall moves. Cut to black. A single line fades onto the screen. When the mind of a genius begins to turn against him, no one is safe from the next day begins like any other. But for Murdoch, nothing feels normal anymore. The world seems slightly off balance, like a clock ticking half a second out of rhythm. He walks through the busy corridors of Station House Number 4, papers rustling, officers moving about, but all he hears is the faint echo of his own thoughts. He deserved it. The words from that note haunt him. Every time he tries to ignore them, they whisper louder. Who wrote them? Why in his handwriting? At his desk, Murdoch lays out every piece of evidence again. Photographs, sketches, and fingerprints spread before him like a puzzle he should have solved long ago. He compares his notes to the constable's reports, searching for mistakes. But the more he looks, the less sense anything makes. Witnesses claim to have seen him near the alley that night, though he remembers being at home. At least, he thinks he does. The narration deepens, soft but uneasy. When the truth starts to slip, even memory becomes a suspect. Julia notices the strain in his face during breakfast that morning. "William," she says softly, "you're not sleeping." He doesn't deny it. "There's something about this case I can't see clearly. Every fact I test feels wrong." She reaches for his hand. "You've been through worse." He looks at her, eyes distant. "Not like this." That night, Murdoch returns to his workshop, his sanctuary, filled with inventions, gears, and equations that always made sense. But tonight, even the machines seem to mock him. A small device on his table ticks irregularly. He opens it, only to find its gears rearranged, as if someone tampered with it. But the locks were never broken. The only person with the key is him. He turns toward the wall where his investigation board hangs. Photos of the victim, notes, newspaper clippings. But something new catches his eye. A piece of paper pinned to the corner that wasn't there before. In his own handwriting, it reads, "You already know the truth." Murdoch's breath quickens. He pulls it down, comparing the ink, the pressure of the pen. It's identical to his own. He stares at it for a long moment before realizing his hands are shaking again. The sound of his heartbeat fills the silence. Constable Crabtree knocks softly. "Sir?" "You asked me to check the station logs from the night of the murder. There's something odd." Murdoch straightens up. "What is it?" Crabtree hesitates. "You sign it in at 9:45 that night, but the murder happened at 9:42. Murdoch's face goes pale. He takes the ledger, scanning it quickly. His name is there, his signature, clean and perfect. But he has no memory of writing it. The narrator whispers, "When time and truth no longer agree, madness is never far behind." He thanks Crabtree and dismisses him, trying to mask his panic. As soon as the room is empty, Murdoch tears through his desk drawers, searching for answers. Old case notes scatter across the floor. Sketches of murder weapons, autopsy reports, diagrams of human behavior. His mind spins faster than the clock on the wall. In one of the drawers, he finds a small leather notebook he doesn't recognize. He opens it. Every page is filled with thoughts. Paranoid, frantic writing. "They're watching me. He deserved it. I can't tell Julia. The handwriting is his." He drops it, stumbling back. For a moment, he can't breathe. Then he hears it, faint, echoing footsteps coming from the corridor. But the station is empty. He grabs his lantern and steps outside. The hallway is dark, shadows stretching like fingers. The light flickers. He calls out, "Who's there?" No answer, only silence. Then a whisper, "William." He freezes. The voice is calm, familiar. He turns sharply, but no one's there. The lantern flickers again, the flame struggling to stay alive. Then just before it goes out, he catches a glimpse, a reflection in the glass window. His own face, but not quite right. The eyes colder, the smile wrong. He drops the lantern. The glass shatters, plunging the hall into darkness. The narration grows lower, tense. In the shadows of his own mind, the detective meets his most dangerous suspect yet, himself. Murdoch wakes hours later, slumped over his desk, the broken lantern replaced. The station light filters through the windows. Was it a dream? He's not sure anymore. He checks the notebook. Gone. Every trace of it erased as if it never existed. Crabtree enters with a concerned look. "Sir, are you sure you're all right?" Murdoch forces himself to nod. "Yes, George. Just tired." But as Crabtree leaves, the camera closes in on Murdoch's face. Eyes haunted, searching, frightened. He opens his desk again. This time, there's another note. Fresh ink. "Stop looking." He whispers, "I can't." The narrator returns, calm but chilling. What do you do when every clue leads to your own reflection? When every answer asks you to stop searching? As the scene fades, the ticking of the clock returns, louder and louder. Night falls over Toronto once again. The city hums faintly under the orange glow of gas lamps, but inside station house number 4, everything is still. The corridors are silent, the clocks ticking louder than ever. In his office, Detective Murdoch sits surrounded by his own notes, pages of calculations, evidence sketches, and timelines that no longer make sense. The order he once trusted has turned to chaos. He stares at a photograph of the victim, Harold Fenwick. Every time he looks, the man's eyes seem to shift, his expression darker, almost alive. Murdoch blinks. The image returns to normal. He rubs his temples, trying to steady himself, but his thoughts spiral faster than he can contain them. The narration turns slow and tense. When the mind begins to bend, even the familiar becomes a stranger. Julia enters quietly, holding a file. "William," she says softly, "Chief Brackenreed is worried. You haven't been home for 2 days." He doesn't look up. "I can't leave." "Not until I understand." "Understand what?" she asks gently. Murdoch's eyes lift to hers, exhausted, uncertain. "Why everything I know feels wrong." Julia sets the file down. Inside are the results of a handwriting test she secretly ordered. She hesitates before speaking. "The note you found. It matches your writing, William." "Exactly." He stares at her, the words cutting deeper than any wound. "That's impossible." "There must be an error." "There isn't," she whispers. "I checked it 3 times." For a long moment, he says nothing. Then he stands abruptly, pacing the room. "If the evidence says I'm guilty, then the evidence is flawed." "It has to be." Julia steps closer. "Or maybe you're not seeing it clearly anymore." Murdoch's voice cracks, sharp but trembling. "I'm not mad, Julia." Silence fills the air. The look in her eyes says she doesn't think he is. But she's not sure anymore. Neither is he. The music grows darker. Murdoch storms out of the room, the echo of his footsteps following him down the hall. The gas lights flicker as he passes. He heads to the morgue, searching for answers no one else can see. In the cold glow of the examination room, he spreads out the evidence again. The fingerprints on the chloroform bottle, the fibers on the victim's jacket, all point to one person. "Himself," he whispers. "It can't be." Then from the corner of the room a voice replies, soft and familiar. "But it is." Murdoch freezes. Slowly he turns toward the sound. In the shadow stands a figure, him, the same face, same coat, same calm stare. The double steps forward, smirking slightly. "You always thought you could separate reason from feeling. But what happens when reason lies?" Murdoch backs away, shaking his head. "You're not real." The reflection laughs quietly. "Aren't I? Who else would know everything you hide?" The voice of the narrator cuts in, low and haunting. "Every great mind has a shadow, and when the light fades, the shadow begins to speak." The double leans closer, whispering, "You knew Fenwick. You knew what he did. You wanted justice. Admit it." Murdoch shouts, "No!" and throws the lantern across the room. It crashes, the flame flaring, smoke rising. When he looks again, the figure is gone. Only the sound of his own breathing remains. He sinks to the floor, clutching his head. His thoughts twist like broken wires. Flashes of the victim's face, his own hands, the note, Julia's voice. Reality fractures. Hours later, Crabtree finds him in the dark, sitting silently, the fire long extinguished. "Sir?" Murdoch looks up, eyes red, voice barely audible. "George, do you believe a man could commit a crime and not remember it?" Crabtree hesitates. "I suppose it's possible." Murdoch nods slowly. "Then maybe I've been investigating the wrong person." The scene shifts to the next morning. Murdoch walks through the streets alone. The city looks normal, but everything feels wrong. He glances at people passing by, each face somehow familiar, every sound sharper than it should be. A street musician plays a violin. The melody is the same tune Julia hums when she's worried. He stops, staring, heart pounding. The musician turns to him and whispers, "You can't hide from yourself." Murdoch stumbles back, panic rising. The world feels like it's closing in, every shadow moving, every whisper calling his name. Narration builds. The man who once built order from chaos now drowns in his own creation. Logic has turned against him, and every clue he finds pulls him deeper into madness. He rushes back to the station, desperate to prove he's still in control. He locks himself in his lab, drawing diagrams, connecting threads, mapping timelines, trying to rebuild the truth. Hours pass, the sun sets, the candles burn low. Finally, he stops, staring at the board. Every line leads to one name, William Murdoch. He steps closer, disbelief twisting into fear. He whispers, "No, it can't be." But the evidence stares back, cold, unfeeling, undeniable. He rips the board down, paper scattering like falling snow. "No," he shouts. The sound echoes through the empty building, then fades into silence. The narrator's voice drops to a whisper. When the mind breaks, even truth becomes a lie. Murdoch collapses into his chair, trembling, defeated. The camera lingers on his face. Sweat, exhaustion, and fear. From the shadows, a reflection flickers in the glass once more, the other Murdoch, smirking quietly. "You're getting closer," it says. Murdoch doesn't move. The reflection leans forward. "But are you sure you want to know?" Cut to black. A faint heartbeat echoes. Then, one line fades in on screen. The truth is waiting, but so is the darkness. The city wakes beneath a dull gray sky. Rain falls in thin, silent sheets, washing over the cobblestones and the carriages that roll by. Toronto feels heavier today, quieter as if even the air is holding its breath. Inside Station House number 4, everything is still. The other detectives whisper about Murdoch, wondering where he's gone. His desk remains untouched, except for a single open file, the Fenwick case. But Murdoch himself is nowhere to be found. Narration begins, calm and mournful. When the truth hides in the shadows, even the brightest minds must walk through darkness to find it. Hours later, we see Murdoch wandering the outskirts of the city, soaked, sleepless, and lost in thought. The rain runs down his face, mixing with tears he won't admit are there. His hat is gone, his coat open, but he doesn't care. All that matters now is one thing, the truth. He arrives at an old warehouse on the edge of the rail yard. Something about it pulls him closer. Inside, the air is thick with dust and silence. He lights a match, the small flame trembling in his hand. On the far wall, pinned like a message from the past, are photographs. The victim, the evidence, and in the center, his own picture. Below it, scrawled in rough ink, "Remember what you did." Murdoch's breath catches. He looks around the room. Inventions scattered across the tables. Sketches of devices only he could have built. It's his handwriting everywhere. His notes, his diagrams. This was his secret workspace, one he doesn't remember making. The narration darkens. The human mind can bury what the heart cannot bear. He searches through the papers and finds something hidden under a broken gear, a report written by Harold Fenwick. The banker had been funding experimental research on hypnosis and memory control under Murdoch's name. Fenwick had stolen his ideas, twisted them, and left Murdoch blamed for unethical experiments. Murdoch whispers, "He used me. Then he framed me." Pieces begin to connect. The blackout in his memory, the notes, the handwriting, the missing hours. He wasn't mad, He'd been manipulated, drugged, controlled. His own inventions turned against him. But before he can process the relief, the familiar voice returns. Calm, low, dangerous. You wanted revenge, William. Don't pretend you didn't. He spins around. The other Murdoch stands there again, face half lit by the flickering lantern. You built the device that let him control minds. You gave him the power. You're as guilty as he was. Murdoch steps closer, defiant. No, I built it to help, not to harm. The reflection smiles. But harm is what you brought. He realizes it now. The voice isn't a hallucination. It's guilt, wearing his face. The embodiment of the part of him that can't forgive himself. Narration softens. Sometimes the enemy isn't out there. It's the voice that never stops whispering inside. Murdoch closes his eyes, takes a deep breath, and says quietly, I forgive you. The reflection pauses. Its smile fades. No, it says, voice cracking. You can't. But Murdoch's tone is steady. I must, or I'll lose everything that makes me who I am. The reflection begins to fade. The light flickers and the room falls silent once more. Murdoch is alone again, truly alone. He walks back into the rain, the dawn beginning to rise. Julia finds him standing by the church steps, drenched and exhausted, but calm for the first time in days. She runs to him. William, what happened? He looks at her, eyes clearer now. The truth, he says quietly, and it almost destroyed me. She touches his hand. You're safe now. He nods. No, just where the narration returns. Genius can build walls against lies, but only love can tear them down. Days later, back at the station, Murdoch stands before the evidence board one last time. The case is solved. Fenwick's crimes are exposed. But the damage inside it, Murdoch lingers. He removes his own photo from the board and places it in a drawer. Not as proof of guilt, but as a reminder of how close he came to losing himself. He turns to Crabtree and says with quiet certainty, burn the files. Some truths don't belong in records.